got 5 sleepers for week 1. That's what we're digging into today because hot best ball summer is in the rearview mirror, but drafting teams never ends. This is going to be a new weekly show that posts generally on Friday evening. I'll run through my 5 favorite hidden gems for DFS contests. I'll do 1 at each position in a bonus, and we're going to be focusing on Underdog's Battle Royale tournament, which is a $5 entry this week with a $30,000 top prize. And then to cap things off, I'll share my 3 favorite ways to attack drafts on a given week, and then I'll hop in a few contests and see if I can pull it off. In this video specifically, I'm also going to share my 5 commandments for Battle Royale drafting. I know a lot of people are new to this format, so I want to give some quick and simple tips. So if you are watching this after week 1 and you don't need the week 1 sleepers, just look at the timestamps down below and you can jump to the 5 commandments portion of the video. All right, let's dig in. Week 1, it's honestly one of the best slates of the year. Everything's wide open. We got 12 games. The pool of viable players is as deep as it will be all season. We have very few injuries. We don't have any buys. And what that means is we have a ton of options. We have a ton of different paths we can take to try to take down these contests. And if you guys aren't familiar with the Battle Royale setup, they are 6-person drafts with only 6 rounds. So this is a really big shift. You know, we went from 12-person drafts in best ball with 18 rounds to a contest where only 36 players are drafted. And so our starting lineup is going to shake out with 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, and 1 tight end. So if you kind of zoom out and you think about it, it means everyone can build a super team, right? Everyone can have a top 6 quarterback. Everyone can have a top 6 tight end. But if everyone's doing that, if everyone's just building teams with the exact same 6 quarterbacks, 6 tight ends, the top 24 running backs, the top 24 wide receivers, well, guess what? We need to mix up our strategy and dig deeper because the equivalent in DFS is a bunch of chalk. It's what everyone has. And sure, those can be the best plays. That's why they have the highest ADP. But that doesn't mean that it's our best path to first place. And that's what this video is going to hopefully do for you every week, is kind of illustrate how we need to be taking slightly contrarian approaches to allow us a chance to actually win first place in these contests where you have to be finishing in the top 5, in the top 10 to win significant money. So with that said, let's get into the week 5 sleepers. I'm going to do one for each position and a bonus. Let's start off here at quarterback. And we are scrolling pretty far down here right off the rip. I'm going with Seattle quarterback Geno Smith. They're at home versus Denver this week. His ADP is 35.9. That's quarterback 16 right now. So the top 6 quarterbacks in Battle Royale contests are normally the only ones regularly getting drafted. At QB 16, Geno Smith might be drafted in less than 1 to 2% of the overall contests. And for my DraftKings people out there, he has a $5,500 salary. I think he's also a really nice play in salary cap DFS this week. A few things of why I'm high on Geno. First of all, we can just go look and see how Vegas is handicapping this. They give Seattle the 6th highest implied team total on the slate. They're expected to score 24 points. That's a nice number for the QB 16. 6th most points scored is what the projection is, 16th ranked quarterback. The other thing that has me really excited here is the new coaching staff. They have a new offensive philosophy. They bring in Mike McDonald, but more importantly, Ryan Grubb. He was the architect of that high-flying Washington offense last year that was getting Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk the ball downfield. I think this offense is gonna be a little more exciting this year. The Pete Carroll era is over. They're not just going to be running the ball, bleeding the clock. I think they're going to let Geno cook. I think we're going to see a second-year breakout from JSN. I'm really excited about the Seattle offense this year, and I'd rather get in on it before everyone adjusts, before Geno Smith has a higher ADP. The other thing, this is a nice matchup. They're at home here. Denver's secondary is middle of the pack. Pro Football Focus has them as their 16th overall graded defense. They did just re-sign Patrick Surtain. He's been great, but the rest of the secondary has been completely rebuilt. I'm normally not a defensive guy. I did read that in a PFF article, so you can take their word for it, not mine. But the point is, this isn't an intimidating matchup. And the main thing to emphasize here is that ADP, 35.9. The top 6 quarterbacks are going to be taken in nearly 100% of drafts. We are getting a true low-owned gem with Geno Smith this week. So how do you actually execute it? I like stacking Geno with one of his pass catchers. In this contest, I don't really want to be double stacking. We're actually going to get into that a little bit more. It is different from a DraftKings lineup where you have 9 spots. Here we only have 6, so we have to be more perfect. I'd rather just nail the one wide receiver with my quarterback who goes off for that monster game. So this is how I would prefer to play it. You can stack him with DK Metcalf. I think that's completely viable. DK Metcalf is getting drafted in the majority of these contests, so you're not necessarily getting a uniqueness angle, but he's definitely the pass catcher most likely to go off. I think you can also stack him with Jackson Smith and Jigba, or if you really want to scroll down, Noah Fant, but JSN's definitely my favorite. He also isn't getting drafted, and I'm just betting on a second-year breakout from him. Tyler Lockett enters the year a little bit banged up, and I have high hopes that JSN is going to see that second-year breakout. If you guys missed earlier on the channel this year, I did a video about the year 1 and year 2 guys who break out, and JSN checked multiple boxes for that criteria we're looking for. So that's probably my favorite way to play it with Geno, but I think you can stack him up any which way you want. I should also mention on this note, I'm talking about drafted percentages and game theory. I made a video on the channel earlier this offseason. It was in the spring. I think it was in April where it posted, and it's about scrolling the F down, outsmarting ADP. I'll post a link to that. I'll also have it hyperlinked up here right now. This is a video you must watch if you are going to be drafting a lot of these Battle Royale teams, because it provides the foundation for how we can get first place in these contests and how we need to break free from the shackles of ADP to build teams that the rest of the field isn't building, and to basically make our path to first place an easier path. We don't want to be holding hands with thousands of other drafters with the same teams. And in that video, I also outline how I had 2 teams finish in the top 10 of a Battle Royale contest last year, and it was because I focused on these hidden gems, because I focused on these players who weren't getting selected in every contest. Another thing about this, throughout the video, you'll hear me referencing the ADPs, and a good way to think about it is after ADP of 30 or so, the players who are not selected in every draft are going to go after that, which immediately puts them on our radar. And any of the players that have an ADP of like 1 to, basically 25 into that 30 range, they're getting drafted in the majority of contests. That's kind of what that ADP historically has been able to point us in the direction of. And the macro kind of thing here, if I could best sum up this scrolling down, this isn't galaxy braining. We're not scrolling down to take players who may not see the field. The players who go 15 through 36 in drafts, they don't project that much differently than the players who go 36 to 50. So this is the dynamic we're taking advantage of. All right, with all that said, let's get to the running back. There are a ton of awesome running back plays on this slate who are going outside the top 15, but I think right now my favorite is Giants running back Devin Singletary. They're home versus Minnesota. He has an ADP of 36, which again means he is not getting drafted in basically any of these contests. He's the running back 23, and on DraftKings, I love his price as well, 5,700. I think of all of the backs on this slate, he could face arguably the least amount of competition of any starting running back, maybe other than Jonathan Taylor, who I don't think is going to cede touches. If we actually think about this backfield, you have the rookie Tyrone Tracy, who was airlifted away from practice and then was miraculously back. But he's not going to be a big factor early. He is a guy who's clearly going to need to take some time until he's relevant. You listen to Brian Daboll and these coaches talk about Devin Singletary and they call him Motor and they love this dude. He is going to be their bell cow back. He is going to have a massive snap share, and we're not having to pay a premium for those touches. And on top of this, this is projected to be a close game. The Vikings are only 1-point favorites here, so I think people just don't want to deal with the Giants. Whenever I would float Malik Neighbors in videos this year, people would recoil, they would hate it, nothing with the Giants stench. But I'm telling you, late in these drafts, we want to chase the touches, and Devin Singletary is going to provide those. We're TD hunting here, and in a close game, I think Devin Singletary could get 20 touches and have a chance at a TD. Again, just to continue to kind of reiterate the point here of why am I scrolling down past James Conner, past Najee Harris, past Jerome Ford? Most of these running backs, the ones I just mentioned, they have a similar projection. They need touchdowns to smash too. So when that's the case, we want to scroll down and take the guys no one else is selecting because we aren't sacrificing anything. If the projections are similar, we always want the player who isn't being drafted as much. It's a really simple equation. So how I want to execute this with Singletary, he could be your 1 RB. You can of course just go with 1 RB. I don't mind using him as a flex and doing 2 running back lineups too. And I think the other way to think about these scroll down plays is if you're pretty chalky at the start of your draft, say you do the Josh Allen with Dalton Kincaid, and then you grab a Drake London, basically the guys who go all at ADP, you want to get a little weird with your last pick. You're going to want a differentiator. A player like Singletary as your last round differentiator, I think works really well. All right, at wide receiver, we are headed to the land of deep dish pizza. We're going with Chicago wide receiver Keenan Allen here. He is at home versus Tennessee. His ADP is 35.8. He's wide receiver 28 on this underdog slate. And this is the biggest juxtaposition with a DraftKings salary relative to the other gems we're talking about. His salary on DK is $6,900. I actually don't want to play him on DraftKings. That's pricey. But the price here helps illustrate what a good value he is on Underdog. He's the wide receiver 28 on Underdog by ADP, but the wide receiver 9 on DraftKings by salary. He's right next to Nico and Pittman and Diggs. I mean, guys, this fat Keenan discount is hilarious. And I get it from a season-long perspective. When we were drafting our best ball teams, it's like, all right, Keenan's fat. And guess what? They just drafted Rome Odunze, top 10 overall. This guy's going to come for his job. He's going to be the alpha. I can buy that argument, okay? He could easily get surpassed by the end of the year. But this is week 1, guys. Keenan is going to play every wide receiver snap. He is going to lead this team in targets in week 1. The Bears have the 5th highest team total on the slate, 24.75. So we're getting the wide receiver 1 on a team expected to score almost 25 points. And yet no one is drafting this guy because there was a shot of him wearing a baggy hoodie at some point. This is insane. You got to load up on Keenan. And this is also the perfect spot to leverage the field's overconfidence in this depth chart. DJ Moore is going as the wide receiver 14. He's drafted in every one of these contests while Keenan is going undrafted. Again, we look at the projection gap between Keenan and DJ Moore. Even if DJ Moore projects for slightly more points than Keenan, it's not enough to justify DJ getting drafted in every draft and Keenan never getting drafted. It just isn't big enough to justify that. So how do I want to execute this with Keenan? You can stack him with Caleb Williams. I think that's perfectly fine. Caleb Williams isn't getting drafted in all of these contests, so that's kind of a nice 1-2 low-owned punch. But you can also just play him as a low-owned piece as your 6th round pick. Similar to Singletary, you just take him as your last pick. It's a way to differentiate your lineup. Okay, let's get to the trickiest position this week, and then we'll do a bonus gem for you. But at tight end, we are going with Dolphins tight end Jonnu Smith. And now bear with me, okay? But first of all, Jonnu Smith, he's at home versus Jacksonville. He has an ADP of 35.9. He's the tight end 12, so rarely getting drafted. He's also cheap on DraftKings, 3,500. But you'll understand why we're going to get to a spot like Jonnu Smith here. And that's because tight end is tougher than all of the other positions this week. To me, there's a clear top 4. You know, you got McBride, you got Kincaid, you got Ingram, you got Pitts. Then there's another kind of tier of 2 players, Jake Ferguson, Njoku. And then it's the Wild West. You have to dig hard to find viable plays at tight end, but I actually think we got one here. I'll lay the case for this pick here. And I shall say, this video is about hidden gems. Like, I'm not going to tell you to draft Trey McBride as my hidden gem. Everyone knows about him. I will say, my strategy this week, I do want to tilt it toward the elite tight ends. I think they're better bets. I don't mind using my 2nd round pick on McBride and Kincaid. I don't mind using a 3rd or 4th round pick on Ingram and Pitts. But if I don't have that luxury, if I'm taking other players, if I get to the end of my draft and I need not only a tight end, but a unique piece, I like going to Jonnu here. The Dolphins have the 2nd highest projected team total on the slate. It's at 26.5. Tyreek Hill is the 101 in drafts this week. Devon Achane goes at the 1-2 turn. Jalen Waddle gets drafted in 100% of these contests. This is to say, everyone is in on the Dolphins in this spot. Everyone likes the Dolphins, but Jonnu Smith is an afterthought, which I get, right? He's not the most sexy piece in this offense, but this provides us a huge leverage opportunity in this contest. And this is interesting to me for a few different reasons, because we also don't know what Jonnu looks like in this offense. We haven't seen how Mike McDaniel wants to employ him. We saw what he did with Durham Smythe. I think Jonnu Smith is a better player than Durham Smythe. I'm going to go on record with that hot take. And Mike McDaniels has also hinted that the tight end is going to be more involved this year. So there's a bit of, variance to how this could play out. I think we want to embrace that in week 1. It's also just not hard to see how Jonnu gets opportunity. Odell isn't playing week 1. Buzzy wide receiver Malik Washington, who I was loving to take in all of my final best ball drafts, is still a rookie who's going to take some time to get up to speed here. That means Jonnu Smith is 3rd on the target pecking order for the pass catchers. And yes, you can make claims about the running backs being, the glorified 3rd and 4th options in the passing game, but still, it's Tyreek, it's Waddle, then it's Jonnu. And so back to that leverage element, if Jonnu steals a touchdown or 2 touchdowns, not only will it make him very usable, you will be very happy with that score, it makes it less likely that the other Dolphins players who are going to be littered across rosters in this contest reach their ceiling. It's so much harder for Tyreek Hill to go for 40 if Jonnu Smith gets 2 touchdowns. It's so much harder for Jalen Waddle to get to 25 if Jonnu is stealing a touchdown in some of that work. So the fact that you could nail a low-owned tight end while wiping out a lot of the other lineups in the contest is a really intriguing angle. And the way I would execute this is in very specific cases. So the first one is I miss out on a top tight end, right? All right, didn't get McBride, didn't get Kincaid, those guys I talked about. The second, I don't have any other Dolphins. I don't want to do Jonnu on Tyreek teams, on Waddle teams, on Achane. I want all the touchdowns to flow through the Dolphin I've already selected if I've done that. And then the last is if you need a low-owned way to finish the draft. So if you find yourself triangulated around that use case, then a guy like Jonnu, I think, works out really well. Our bonus is going to be a running back this week. I can envision some weeks the bonus, gem being a wide receiver. But this week, I'm also going to lump Chuba Hubbard in with the Devin Singletary. He's at New Orleans. His ADP is 35.9. He's running back 22. He's also very cheap on DraftKings, 5,300. And Chuba is very similar to the Singletary play, which is why I did want to make room for both of these guys. And it's just the volume is going to be here. There's no Jonathan Brooks to start the season. Hubbard is going to lead this team in touches. I know Miles Sanders might mix in a little bit, but I fully expect Hubbard to clear 20 touches. If you go to the Underdog Pick'em lobby, his higher, lower for carries is 15. Everyone is expecting work here, and I just don't see a huge difference between him and guys like Aaron Jones and Jerome Ford and Najee Harris, who are all getting drafted in 100% of contests. And if we're also looking at the game environment, I realize it's not the sexiest game environment. Carolina is only expected to score around 19 points on the road versus the Saints. So I understand the general lack of enthusiasm here, but this is the exact spot where we want to fade matchups. We just want to chase touches and targets. And there's a temptation to chase the higher efficiency backs who can get there on less touches. But one of the biggest lessons I've learned in Battle Royale contests is that you want to chase the volume late. And the fact that we can get it with a guy who was selected in less than 5% of drafts is really awesome. And I think similar to the Singletary thing, you can execute this as a one-off play in round 6 as either your running back 1 or running back 2. So one thing I wanted to do here, and I plan to do every single week, is put together a pick'em entry with some combination of all of these hidden gems. It's always kind of a fun way to, even if you're right, but they don't have like a tournament winning score, you can still win some money here. So I put together a pick'em entry. I am going to throw it up on the screen here. You guys can check this out, and I'll post the link down in the description of the video and in the comments. All you have to do is click this on your Underdog account and you can tail this and basically be rooting for the same thing as me this weekend. So here's the pick'em for this week. We got Keenan Allen higher than 49.5 receiving yards. We got Chuba Hubbard higher than 54.5 rushing yards. We're taking Devin Singletary higher than 49.5 rushing yards. We're going to take Geno Smith higher than 238.5 passing yards. And I'll admit, I'm not putting Jonnu in this one. That's way more of a large field tournament leverage play. I'm going to toss JSN because I do think he correlates nicely with Geno. I'm taking higher 44.5 receiving yards. So got the link down below. We'll check in on this next week, see how our pick'em did. And I should also mention, since we're doing the pick'em entry here, if you guys are somehow new to Underdog, they are now offering up to a $1,000 deposit match when you use promo code Pete. So take advantage of this offer if you haven't signed up before, whether you're doing pick'ems, whether you want to do Battle Royale drafts, all of that good stuff. You can get a massive deposit match, and Underdog will also add a free pick'em special when you sign up. All right, one thing I wanted to do in this video, even though it is focused on week 1, I wanted to just zoom out a little bit and do some Battle Royale commandments. This is maybe for people who are relatively new to the format, who are maybe just wondering what are some basic strategic tenets that I should be sticking to as I do this. So I'm going to give you 5 simple tips, 5 commandments, how I think you should be attacking these tournaments generally. And of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but I think if you know these to start, you'll be in pretty good shape going forward. The first one, skinny stack your quarterback. And this is opposed to double stacking. I basically always want to stack my quarterback with at least one wide receiver or tight end, unless it's a quarterback with monster rushing upside. I think if you don't want to stack an Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels, that's completely fine. But I generally want to just have the skinny stack. The reason for avoiding double stacks at quarterback is there's only 36 players getting drafted in these contests. We need to basically hit the nuts. Double stacking is great when we have more lineup spots like 9 on DraftKings, but in this format, if one wide receiver is having a monster game, it makes it less likely that their teammate is as well. The one exception I'll make is if both these pass catchers are going undrafted, which is what I did last year on my CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz teams that finished top 10 in the contest. So if you are going to double stack, make sure that they are truly low-owned gems. Number 2, and this kind of dovetails with commandment number 1, and that's don't force bringbacks in mini correlations in the big Battle Royale tournament. So bringbacks just means, say you have Tua this week with Tyreek, don't automatically go and put Evan Ingram or Christian Kirk in that lineup, because not only are bringbacks overused, I think a lot of the field is doing this, but they serve less utility with only 6 roster spots. You're still needing to get an additional thing right. You need the Dolphins to smash, and you need that individual player to smash. It's better to just take another one-off piece from another game. You don't run into it being a popular bringback, and you still are just getting a chance to be right about something else in a different game environment. Number 3, scroll the F down. This is what we've been talking about through this video, why we're going down to the players who have ADPs after 30. You want to avoid taking players who are drafted in every contest. And this isn't to say every one of your players should be some low-owned gem. Often, the first 3 to 4 picks of my draft are players with high ADPs. Those are the best players. That's why they're rostered there. But it's when you get to those final few rounds, that's when you want to start thinking about getting unique, get a piece that could differentiate your roster from the thousands of other entries in these contests. My general rule of thumb, I like having at least 2 players who aren't drafted in every contest, but if you just aim for at least 1, you'll be in good shape. Number 4, get unique another way. You know, there's 2 ways to get unique. You can reach for players, which is essentially what we're doing when we scroll the F down, or you can scoop up ADP fallers. My general rule of thumb is to always scoop up a faller in the first 3 rounds, because that could result in a unique combo at the top of the board. And then I'll do my reaching in rounds 3 to 6 where I'm not sacrificing as much. So if Jonathan Taylor falls all the way to the 3rd round when he's normally going at the 1-2 turn, always grab Jonathan Taylor, because it's unlikely that a lot of other teams are going to have that pairing of JT with whatever guys you took in the 1st and 2nd round. So scoop up the fallers early. Don't be afraid to reach late. And finally, just don't get too cute. The biggest temptations in Battle Royale contests are either to be too conservative, that's anchored to ADP, you're just building the same team as everyone else, or you're getting too cute. You're taking thin bets at the end of drafts because you're trying to galaxy brain some low-owned gem. Here's the thing. Because there are more than 36 good players on each slate, we can essentially have our cake and eat it too. You can get good players who also aren't regularly drafted. Just use targets, touch projections to drive your decisions late. Volume leads to TDs, and that's what we're after. So when we talk about guys like Chuba Hubbard and Devin Singletary, those guys aren't bad players. Those are players who are going to be focal points of their offense, at least for this week, week 1, and that's something that we should take advantage of in these drafts. All right, like I said, I now am going to hop into a few different drafts here. I want to put some of these ideas on their feet, and I'm going to show you guys how to execute my 3 favorite ways to draft in week 1 Battle Royale contests. All right, we are now going to hop in some drafts. I have 3 specific ideas, my favorite kind of strategic angles for drafts, and we're going to try them each out in a single draft. And before we hop in a Battle Royale, I do want to point out, we are going to have our own weekly league on Underdog this year. It's the Deposit Kingdom Weekly League for everyone who watches this YouTube channel, for everyone in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. I will say, I'm recording this on Wednesday. I had a weird schedule for week 1 because I'm traveling to Vegas for some final drafts. So everything got pushed up. In general, this contest and this video will be posted later on Fridays, but everything got pushed up this week. So if you're watching this video and you go to the lobby and the Deposit Kingdom Weekly League isn't there, it's because it's filling fast. It's already at 17% and it's been up for about an hour and a half. So in general, this contest will be in the lobby when you watch this video on a Friday evening, but did just want to call that out. Definitely get in this contest, and you can always follow us in the Deposit Kingdom Discord, and I'll let you know when that's going to go live. But in general, should be 3 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. But without further ado, let's hop in the Battle Royale. I do want to, put these ideas to the test in the biggest contest here. And our first one is going to be something we outlined in that video, and that's the Geno skinny stack. So I'm open to doing it with Metcalf or with JSN. Let's hop in here and see what a draft looks like. And I can kind of show you guys how I like to think through building in these contests. And, one thing that's kind of interesting about a Battle Royale draft, right, is it's somewhere between like doing a best ball draft, an 18 round, and building a DFS salary cap lineup. And the reason I say that is because when you do a best ball draft, 18 rounds, lots of chaos, right? Always getting thrown a curveball. You can never just do exactly what you want in a best ball draft. There's 11 other people for 18 rounds who are trying to do their own thing, and they get in your way. And so you have to react on the fly. When you build a salary cap DFS lineup, there's no variables. There's no one throwing you for a loop. You can put whoever you want in your lineup. The Battle Royale lineup is kind of in between that for me, right? Because I know no one's going to take Geno Smith from me in this contest. No one's going to take him. He goes all the way down here at, where's his ADP? At ADP 35.9, like we were talking about earlier. So I can kind of already outline my draft in a way that is kind of interesting, right? Where I don't necessarily know what's going to happen in my first few picks, but I know I'm going to take DK Metcalf, or I'm going to take JSN, and then I'm going to take Geno at the end of the draft. So that's helpful here. And I see my friend Davis Maddock in here. I actually think Davis might be streaming right now. So GG's to Davis as we battle this out, doing content for Battle Royales. I got the 1-4 here. And kind of my other thing too, when we're talking about the scroll the F down, I always like to look at each slate and see where the kind of perceived tier gap is. Like, when do we run out of alphas? When do I start justifiably scrolling down? And on this slate, to me, I think this is a pretty deep slate, but maybe not as loaded at the high end. I think after kind of the Trey McBride, Travis Etienne range, once you get to Marvin Harrison, Evan Ingram, that's kind of my cutoff there. So the way I think about things, I want to get any of these on this slate, top 13 or 14 players, like however I can get them on my lineup. And then I'm willing to start scrolling because there's so many good plays down here. And on this team, this is going to be the Geno skinny team. And we'll make our decisions accordingly, right? I'm not going to take Kenneth Walker on a Geno Smith team. I want all of the passing or all of the points to go through the passing game. But because I know I'm going to be doing a stack, it means I might like a running back here. But the running back goes Bijan. I'm going to take Justin Jefferson on this team. I'm not taking Josh Allen because I know I'm taking Geno. I think Justin Jefferson has a monster ceiling in this spot here against the Giants. And now we will see what comes back to us at 2-3. But yeah, to again piggyback on how you can kind of plan some stuff out, I also know that my primary stack, it's going to be Geno with either Metcalf or JSN. I know I'm also going to need a tight end. And because I do really like the more expensive tight ends here, I might see how I want to approach this if I want to reach for a tight end. And I think I do. I think I'll take Dalton Kincaid here. I guess this isn't really much of a reach. He has an ADP of 11, but we'll take him and lock up this tight end. This is a nice game environment, Buffalo versus Arizona. And then I think what we're probably looking at is one more pick that we like here. Probably going to be a running back. I think guys like Etienne, Rachaad White, Kamara all really stand out to me as very good plays. Then we'll probably come back around and snag DK Metcalf. And then we'll be getting Geno, and then we'll have one other pick to play with. I think if I go Geno Metcalf, that would mean Geno is kind of my only unique piece. Everyone else will have been getting drafted a good bit. But I think what falls to us at the 4 will be the most interesting decision point, because we'll either be grabbing Metcalf there, or if there's a faller we really like, maybe we then end up going Geno JSN to get 2 unique pieces. That's what I'd ideally like to get at in these drafts. Like I said, is a couple unique pieces. I'm going to go ahead and take Rachaad White here. I think he projects really well. I know all offseason long, I've been a big Bucky Irving guy, but the whole Bucky Irving thesis is by week 15, week 16. What happens in the fantasy playoffs? Rachaad White is going to be the dude in week 1. Last year, we saw Rachaad White on winning Battle Royale lineups a ton. He was a fixture there in those winning lineups alongside Mike Evans. The offense was just really condensed around Rachaad White and Evans for most of the year. I think Kamara is an equally solid play. And this would be the spot. So Drake London falls here. I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to take Drake London. I guess not a huge ADP faller. This is right at his ADP, but we're going to essentially chalk it up. All these players are going drafted in these contests. Nothing super unique here. But now we're going to do the Geno JSN, because we're going to get a stack here that is not going to be popular whatsoever. And then this will give us a really solid base, 4 strong contributors in Rachaad White, Justin Jefferson, Drake London, and Dalton Kincaid, and then 2 unique pieces. And again, I could totally take DK Metcalf here. I don't think it's bad at all. However, this is kind of the spot where I look at the ADP of 32 for Metcalf. That means he's going to be drafted in roughly, 50 to 60%. Based on kind of the historical data I look at for this stuff, whereas JSN at an ADP of 35.9 is going to be drafted in less than 1%. So on this team where I already have 4 popular players, I am going to go with JSN and get a little bit more unique here. We will take Geno first, just to make sure there's no tomfoolery here. And then we'll hop in another draft. And this is kind of the beauty, too, of these Battle Royales. First of all, they're already very quick, right? You're just drafting 6. But do you know what I can do here? I can push the plane. This team is already done. I know that I'm going to get JSN or DK Metcalf. So then I get the Geno with the JSN. I get the Rachaad White at running back. I get Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Dalton Kincaid. And this kind of speaks to my point of I'm not over correlating. I have 1 stack. I need Geno and JSN to give me a top score. And then I'm just cherry picking top scores from the other games. That's how I'd like to play it. So that team, we know how it's going to end because no one is going to take JSN from me there. And now we're going to hop in another one and we're going to try our second idea. This is what I'm calling the double punt running back build. And so what I would like to do here is build the team with my Devin Singletary and Chuba Hubbard as my last 2 picks. Those were my 2 gems. I think they're both very viable as late round picks. And then this allows me, again, to entirely focus on quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end early in the draft, knowing that I want to build a team with 2 unique pieces at the end of the draft. So in this one, I have the 1-5, and we will see how this one shakes out here. You heard me mention the Deposit Kingdom contest on Underdog. The Deposit Kingdom is referenced initially to the Discord. So if you guys aren't in the Discord, it's a free Discord to enter. There are plenty of free channels. There's also a decent amount of premium channels as well. I mentioned if you're a YouTube member, you get access to the DFS channel, but there are plenty of free channels in there, including the Badge Bros, where a lot of Battle Royale strategy discussion happens. So got the link down below. I also will always post announcements for the listener leagues, things exclusive to Discord members in there. So we'd love to have you join us if you're looking for a place to talk shop during the week. So let's see here at 1-4. Am I going to end up with Justin Jefferson again, or are we going to mix this up a little bit? I'm not going to do Bijan, right? Because I know I am going to be taking 2 running backs. So we will do Jefferson. And this is the thing where I talked about not forcing little mini correlations. Jefferson does play Singletary. I don't think that's a bad thing. In a perfect world, we are getting Singletary scoring, Justin Jefferson scoring. Let's go ahead, and we want to do another wide receiver or a tight end. Let's bounce around this time and take Trey McBride. Now, I will admit, if I were doing this draft regularly, I'm going to allow the room to kind of dictate my decisions a little easier. I probably would have taken Jonathan Taylor otherwise, but for this draft, I want to just show what it would look like if you did these 2 running backs late. And I honestly think giving yourself these challenges is a good way to get unique, because it is easy to get an autopilot, always click off of ADP. So if you say to yourself, I know I'm taking 2 running backs late, what does a team look like knowing that? Well, one, you know you're not taking running backs early. So that's going to push you into other different decisions early on. And now we have some other things we can think about. We have Jefferson and McBride. So some stacking options could be Kyler. Another stacking option would be scrolling way down for Darnold. My thought is, because we are going to have 2 low-owned running backs in Chuba and Singletary, I don't need to get super weird at quarterback. So I do think getting Kyler Murray here makes a ton of sense. Another option would be, what if we take Stroud, get a pass catcher with him? You know, we have plenty of options. Nico's gone, but Tank and Diggs are there. I think we do that. Let's try this here. Let's take Stroud. We'll assume that even though we have Trey McBride, that Kyler isn't the top scoring quarterback. Let's say McBride does it a little bit more through a bunch of receptions, maybe some yards after the catch. Maybe Kyler doesn't rush in a TD. Let's play it that way. And now we'll get our stack here. We have Tank and Diggs. I'll go Diggs. I think Diggs is going to complain enough if he doesn't get targeted in his Houston debut. Houston's going to want to let everyone know that they didn't make a mistake bringing in Diggs. So now this team is done, right? We did a CJ Stroud to Diggs stack. We have Justin Jefferson and Trey McBride as our high ceiling, anchors. And then we know we're finishing with Chuba Hubbard and Devin Singletary. And then again, the beauty of these Battle Royale drafts, if you're doing a bunch of these, you can push the plane. You can put these guys in the queue and know, look, no one's taking my Chuba Hubbard. No one's taking my Devin Singletary. I can move on and do another draft. You're still building the team you want to build. And it works out in a nice way that you can actually get a ton of volume down in these drafts. So you'll see here, I put it on the autopilot. It'll automatically take Chuba for me, and then it will automatically take Devin Singletary. And then this team will be done. Stroud to Diggs. We got our 2 low-owned running backs, Devin Singletary and Chuba, and our tight end, Trey McBride. And now we will hop in and do a final draft with another idea. And this was the one I mentioned in the gems. This is the leverage tight end angle. So the leverage tight end bomb, I want to take either Jonnu on a team with no Dolphins, or I want to take Dalton Schultz on a team with no Texans. And we talked about Jonnu in the gems portion. I think Dalton Schultz is pretty similar in that if you play him without any other Texans, if he gets the 2 touchdowns, that means the Diggs teams, the Nico teams, the Tank teams are likely not the optimal first place, players that you're going to need to win the contest. So you're getting that leverage element. We'll see how this draft breaks, and we will do either Dalton Schultz or Jonnu Smith on this team. And again, just to kind of show you guys when we're talking about, man, Pete, you're getting really weird in these drafts, you can look at the prize pool and kind of understand why, right? You can finish in, let's say something that would be a nice accomplishment. You can finish in 50th place out of 67,000 entrants, almost 68,000 entrants, and you get $500. No one's turning their nose up at $500. That's a 50x? No, 100x on your buy-in. But to win the big prize, to get to 30,000 or 15,000 even, you got to be finishing in these top 2. So when you're going against so many other entries, we do have to pull some uniqueness levers. We can't do what the other 68,000 entrants are doing. And that's why you might push back and be like, man, that seems a little galaxy brain. It seems a little thin, both Chuba and Singletary. If you hit on these things, your path to first place is going to be much easier than it would have been otherwise. So this will be our final draft here. We'll keep this rolling every week. If you guys have any thoughts on this format, like I said, I've basically been conceptualizing it in my head. Let me know in the comments any feedback on it. Definitely plan to run through some gems, a macro overview of the slate, and then hop in drafts with a specific idea in mind, just to give you guys the ideas, get the juices flowing as you hop in these drafts, and try to think of creative ways to attack these weekly drafts with each unique slate, kind of presenting different opportunities. So we'll see what we do here. We know we're going to be taking a late round tight end. So I'm just going to put Schultz and Jonnu in the queue just to start out. I'm not going to take Achane because we've already talked about maybe using that angle. Let's do Jonathan Taylor. We haven't gotten him yet. And let's see. I guess we can make a choice. Should we do Jonnu? Jonnu was our gem. Let's take Nico here. Let's take Nico, and then this will be a Jonnu team. So we're kind of playing this game environment. JT, Nico, opposite each other. Jonnu Smith's going to be our last round pick, a tight end, and we're going to take no Dolphins on this team because we want to play out a scenario where all of the production goes through Jonnu and none of the other guys hit their ceiling. And again, when I say all of the production, obviously Jonnu isn't going to become the focal point of the offense, but it's just to say, if Jonnu has 60 yards and a touchdown, maybe that means Tyreek Hill is at 20 points instead of 30 points. Maybe it means Waddle's at 15 instead of 20. And when you get those scores that are just slightly muted, it makes it a lot harder for them to end up in the optimal lineup. So the leverage you have to get doesn't have to be huge. You don't need a ton from your last round tight end. The tight ends just don't score a ton of points. And so if you get a touchdown and 60 yards from your tight end, you throw in a few receptions and all of a sudden you're up to 13, 14 points. That's pretty significant when you also add in the leverage angle there. So we'll see what comes to us here at the 3-4 turn. We know our last pick is going to be Jonnu Smith. That means we have a quarterback, a wide receiver, and a flex to play with. I don't really want to do Marvin Harrison in round one. I think this is going to be a team where we do two running backs. Maybe I'll get a Kamara. We did Rashad White on that team. I think Kamara as our second running back is solid. And then we can figure out what we want to do for our wide receiver 3. We wouldn't do Olave on a Kamara team. Let's do Neighbors, man. I'm so stoked on, or I guess we also have to look at quarterback and make sure that we're thinking through a stack here. So maybe I don't get too far ahead of myself. Yeah, because then I don't know if I necessarily want to do Neighbors with DJ Moore. Let's see here. Yeah, we'll do Kamara, and then we will do, who do we want to stack up at quarterback? We're not going to do Richardson. We're not going to do Kyler. We could do like a Burrow Higgins, but I don't love that. You know what? This might honestly just end up being a Daniel Dimes team. It might just end up being a Daniel Dimes team. We're going to take Neighbors. And this is how these teams end up getting built pretty easily. The other avenue, so here's why I was in a tough spot. If I don't have a clean stack, guys like Anthony Richardson and Jaden Daniels are really good bets, right? Because they don't need to be stacked to get there. However, I have Jonathan Taylor. So I'm already playing it as if all the points funnel through Jonathan Taylor on this team. So I'm not going to do Richardson. So then I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't have CJ Stroud. I know I'm doing Jonnu. I don't really want to do Tua with Jonnu. I think if Tua is the optimal, it's because Tyreek Hill is getting some big plays. So I basically would have had to have made a different decision for a quarterback. So now I have two options. I can do Daniel Dimes with Neighbors, which is pretty galaxy brain. And I don't really want to do that on a Jonnu's team because I'm already getting pretty weird. The other option would be to take the other Konami code quarterback that doesn't have to be stacked up. And that's Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels on the road, first career start. Could be a little neutered. We know we're taking Jonnu. I think I'm just going to plug my nose and take Daniel Jones. I think that's what we're going to do. I will admit, this might be a little too out there. We're now on to 3 players who, or I guess just 2, just Daniel Jones and Jonnu Smith, You know what? I'm coming back around. This one has put my mind in a blender. Is this too weird? Is it too overboard? I don't think it is. We have 4 really solid picks in JT, Kamara, Nico, Neighbors, and now we're getting weird with our 2 final picks. So we'll grab Jonnu Smith, we'll grab Daniel Jones. And again, this is just to provide you guys with ideas. It really is helpful to go into these drafts with a plan. Know certain things you want to accomplish. What are the things on the slate you want to attack? And this is what we will be doing each and every week. So our 3 teams in the books, we had the Geno Skinnies, we had the double punt running back, and we had the tight end leverage bomb here with Jonnu Smith. If you guys want my last minute thoughts on the slate each week, I do a DFS cram for YouTube members on the Pete Overzet live stream channel. That's a different channel than this one. That's every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We go through the slate on both Underdog and DraftKings. We share my favorite plays. We react to inactive news that comes out at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We do a couple final drafts and build some pick'em entries. I'll put the link down below. You just join the Hand Builders and Opto Bros tier for access to that. And you'll also get the DFS After Dark premium show. So for $8 a month, you get 8 premium shows. Very good deal over there if you want some more DFS and Battle Royale content. And that's it. The first Battle Royale strategy video in the books here on the Deposit Kingdom channel. Let me know in the comments who your hidden gems are this week. We'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards.